So today we'll be covering the reducer pattern. Okay. You must have heard this word redux. If you might have heard other people talk about redux in React and things like that. So this is what we're going to cover today. The agenda is understand what this reducer pattern is. Second, to understand how to manage global state. We'll come to what global state is later on. And there are two ways we will go about it. One is using React context and the other is using Redux. Okay. So the target for today is we'll do the same, keep the app the same, whatever we have created so far. In that, we'll just introduce the reducer pattern. Okay. And we'll see what are the benefits and what are the shortcomings also of reducers. So why use the reducer pattern? One is it helps make state changes more testable. How it does this actually will come to this back to this slide at the end. Okay. It helps make state changes more testable. You can avoid callbacks and prop drilling, so you don't have to pass on props every time. You can it helps with that. and it keeps the state logic separate from the component. Okay? So whatever your component is written, if there is some complicated state management that first we need to set this loading state, then we have some big object in that we need to manipulate different things. So instead of keeping it all in one place, all inside the component itself, we can keep it inside the reducer. तो एक अलग जगह पे चले जाता है और UI एकदम simple लगता है. Okay, how this happens? All of this we'll do it, and then we'll come back to this slide. Okay, cool. So let's start with this. useReducer. Okay, so the reducer function. Okay, that's the main target for today. It is a function that receives the current state as the first argument and the action passed to it as the second argument. Let me explain. This doesn't make any sense so far. है ना? अभी तक तो it would be, yeah. So let's say I have a state variable here. Let me keep this loading only or this count variable, right? Const state, comma, dispatch. Okay, the dispatch is similar to useState. Set state. useReducer. So useReducer takes two arguments. Okay, the reducer function and then the initial state. Okay, so initially we want the count to be 0, right? And now we have a reducer function. Okay, so I'm just going to write count reducer, and here we will define. For now, we'll define it right here only. Const count reducer equal to function. Okay, this is good enough for now. Now, sorry, what is the problem? useReducer. Initialize. Then okay, let's just check the documentation. What is going on? Is there the error is still there, right? useReducer, initial argument and init. हाँ सही तो है. Reducer and initial state 0. Okay, I think this reducer doesn't return anything. return 0. Did I fix it? Yes, it does. Cool. Okay. So let's go through the definition. The reducer function receives the current state as the first argument and the action passed to it as the second argument. So it should receive the current state and something that is called the action. For now, let's just see what both of these things are. So state, right now I'll give the state, it's a number state because we have the count, and action I'll just put it as any for now. Okay. So let's see what happens when we do this. Okay. So nothing printed right now. Okay, that means this count reducer function is not called yet. But if we print the value of state, so let's return 2 from here. We should get 0. That means it is directly taking the initial state, okay, and storing it inside this state variable. Now, what we will do is, instead of increment, we'll just do dispatch. Okay, this dispatch is something like set state, and let's just pass a random payload. Okay, let's call it count 2. Okay, so I've dispatched it with this object which has count 2. Now let's check what happens. This part. Yeah, there we go. We got inside the arguments, we got the state, initial state 0, and we got count 2. Now notice what is happening here. When I call this dispatch function, this count reducer runs. A reducer function, it gets triggered. But did we pass the state to it? No. Automatically, internally, it has this state. Okay, so it gets past that state. We pass only this action to the dispatch, and that action, as it is, it gets copied out here. Okay, and that is what we console out. Now, the rule of the reducer is whatever you return from the reducer becomes the new state. Okay, for example, if I do return action.count, okay, and I make the count here 5. Save this, and now clear this and increase it. So now you see we had the initial state, the state before this was 2. It got an action count 5, and then it became 5. Okay, that's what's happening here. Now I'll just replace this completely. Cool. Okay. So it returns the new state. The reducer function itself returns the state value, right? Now, what does the useReducer hook return? It returns the current state, okay? Just like sets useState. It returns that state, and it returns this dispatch helper method, okay? Now, what is an action? An action, which is basically yahan pe what we pass, right, to dispatch. That's called the action. Action is an object. Okay. It is convention. In general, it is a convention that there has to be a type to every action. So inside our action object, we must have a type key. Okay. Okay. And let's say the type is increment. And if we need to pass anything else as a payload, then we can pass that in the other case. Normally, that name we give it as payload. This is again a convention, right? By convention, it is recommended to use the payload key. Okay? So let's just call the, yeah. So this is what it looks like. Type increment payload 5. Okay? Now what I have to do here is, based on the action type, I can do different actions. On the state, I can return different things. So let's say right now, in case of increment, okay, if action dot type equal to increment, what do we want to do? What should we return? No, increment is countless 1 only, no? Sorry, correct. You're right. We can do payload, but in case of increment, if we want to just increment by 1, so we just do count plus 1. Yes. Okay. So now the current count is there in this state variable. So I can directly return state plus 1. So now notice I don't have to pass any other argument. I just have to pass type increment and it will return the state plus 1. If I don't pass anything right now, just return state. Something. Let's do this. Great. So now when I did increment, it actually updates the state. Same as useState. So only difference is we use this dispatch method and we don't have to pass this initial state as an argument, right? It can just, it directly receives the state as its own internal argument. Okay. Now I can have another action. I can say const decrement. Again, and I'll say dispatch decrement. Let's add another button. And we'll add a h1. Just count. Decrement. Now, why isn't it decreasing? But it's not changing also.
Yes, condition.
Correct. So by default, we are returning the normal state. We have not added this condition yet. And now all of it works. So increment also works and decrement also works. Okay. So like this, generally all the reducers will have multiple actions. They'll have increment, decrement. Some might have a reset. Some might have set it to something else. And the state will not always be like as simple as a number. And normally we'll deal with arrays of objects only, right? But for an example, we took this. So the best way, the standard way, again, this is a convention. Inside a reducer, you always use switch case. Okay. So typically we write switch action.type. Okay. And then we have the different cases. Case increment, return state +1. Okay, and it is a good practice to always have the default case in case someone passes any action that does not match, to return the normal state. Let's see what happens if we don't do this. Okay, so let's say I do this. Let's say I do 1 1, right? This is not a valid argument, it will not match. Okay, so now let me do this. What happened? It became undefined. Why? Because by default, if a function does not return anything, it returns undefined. Right? That's why it's very important to have this default return state. So this avoids any kind of errors. Okay, cool. So this is the general reducer pattern. Now, another good practice while using reducers, okay, is keep the actions in a constants object. Okay, that will allow for checking duplicates as well as avoid help avoid typos. What does this mean? These increment strings, these decrement strings, we should keep it in a constants object. Okay, whatever these action types are. So I'll give you an example. Const count reducer actions equal to an object. So this is a convention. By convention in React or generally any front-end apps, you will, if you have something that is constant, you will write it in capital case, all uppercase with snake casing. Okay, and even the keys will be same. So increment. Cool. So we have this here. So now what I can do is I can write here count reducer actions dot increment and count reducer actions dot decrement. And here also I will need to change it. Okay. And let's refresh. Plus minus is not. Oh, sorry. तुम्हें अभी तक क्या दिखा रहा था? अच्छा, if else में था. Correct. Okay, cool. So we got this working. Any questions right now? It would be good to answer some questions right now. क्योंकि ये बहुत ही. What are your feelings about a reducer right now? Do you feel it is useful? Do you feel it is good? हाँ?
Use समझ में नहीं आता.
हाँ, correct. Exactly ना. समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि क्यों इतना घुमा के हम इतना सब क्यों कर रहे हैं जब पहले ही हो रहा था वो count plus 1 से. I completely agree and I completely sympathize. ठीक है, मुझे personally ये reducer pattern इतना अच्छा नहीं लगता है, and there are very rare use cases where I would use it, but today we'll see something, okay, and that might make sense. So let's wait for it. So what we're going to do now is हम अपने ये पूरा state है ना, to do's, show completed, loading, count तो छोड़ देंगे, ये सब कुछ हम एक reducer में डालने वाले हैं. Okay, let's do that right now. So, and I will just, for now, I will just keep this reducer here. Call it state reducer. Const equal to state reducer of, ठीक है. तो पहले we'll just dispatch. I'll remove this count variable, and I will also remove the buttons. State reducer. Now let's see what should be the shape of our reducer. Okay, we will have to-dos, which is an array of to-do item, right? So it's going to be to-dos, show completed, and loading. Now this is the initial state object, है ना? So to-dos का initial state क्या होगा? If it is an array, empty array, exactly what we have here, right? So I'm just going to copy from here. So false, show completed will be false by default. Loading will be set to true by default. Okay. Now, state reducer, right? Now, this is the shape. So let's make an interface for it. Now it is an array of to-do items. और ये तो boolean है. Okay, great. And so this state is going to be type component state. Now action, let's define an interface for the actions also. Interface action. It should, by our rules, it should always have only two items. Type will be string, and payload can be anything right now. Okay, so we put any right now, and this will be action. Great. Now, what are the different actions that we need in this app? Let's say I want one will be chalo. Let's say we have to change the show completed, right? So what will I do? I'll call it toggle show completed. Okay. Now here I have to return something. So what can I return here? We know state will have the entire state. Okay. So yeah, what should I return here? And whatever I return will become the new state, right? Gauravi, what can I write here? I want the new state value to have show completed as opposite, whatever it was, uska opposite. नहीं, अभी के लिए टू डूज को हम वैसे ही रखेंगे. शो कंप्लीटेड को
opposite.
हाँ, so how will I do that? What should I write on line number 16 or 17, wherever?
State dot to-dos.
State dot show completed
Equals to show completed.
Not of state dot show completed. And then what do I do? Return state.
Return state.
हाँ, पूरे जाने चाहिए. Whatever we return here will become the new state. So we have to return the entire state. है ना? ठीक है. तो ये हो गया. Let's test this out. actually what we'll do is we'll ये show completed को रखेंगे, we'll destructure it equal to state dot show completed, और ये जहाँ पे set हो रहा है ना, set show completed, ठीक है. So we'll make it so yeah, let's write a function const toggle show completed equal to, now what should this function do?
Change state application.
How will it change the reducer state? How do we change this reducer state? Can you look at this line? It should give you a hint. What can we use? नहीं समझ आ रहा ना? ठीक, fine, it's okay. We'll use the dispatch.
राहुल एक बार वापस से एक्सप्लेन करो, या कुछ नहीं समझ में आ रहा है.
ठीक है, yeah, I'll do it again. I totally get it. ठीक है, अभी के लिए so type action dot toggle show completed, okay. And then we'll do we'll just test this out if this is working. क्या होगा? Show completed. Show completed यहाँ पे false हो रहा है, but अंदर अपडेट नहीं हो रहा है. ठीक है, वो देख लेंगे क्यों नहीं हो रहा है ना. But finally, yeah, it is changing. Show completed change हो रहा है. Let's come back to this. Okay. What is a reducer? So reducer is a function जिसको automatically हमारा जो state है that will come as a first argument, है ना. Whatever is the updated state, latest state value will come as the first argument. We don't have to pass it every time, right? And second, it takes an action argument. ठीक है, action के हिसाब से हम decide कर सकते हैं कि क्या करना है. So now think about it this way. It's like we want to tell the reducer कि change the show completed. तो हम उसको सिर्फ एक action डाल रहे हैं with this type कि change the show completed. बाकी कुछ हम नहीं देख रहे कि अभी उसका completed state क्या है, क्या होगा, हमको कोई परवाह नहीं है. We are just telling him just dispatch this action, okay, and that's what it does. It internally हम बोलते हैं कि अच्छा ये action आया तो फिर मुझे ये चीज करना है. ठीक है, that's actually it in terms of reducer क्या होता है. But इसमें क्या confusing लग रहा है? Let's start with this line. इस लाइन में what is confusing?
हाँ, तो यहाँ पे जो स्टेट रिड्यूसर यूज किया हमने,
हाँ,
ये स्टेट रिड्यूसर के बाद वो मतलब क्या है एग्जैक्टली?
ये ऑब्जेक्ट,
हाँ ये तो ऑब्जेक्ट, ये ठीक है,
ये तो इनिशियल स्टेट है.
हाँ, ये जो है ये स्टेट रिड्यूसर है.
ये
एग्जैक्टली. हाँ,
ये वो फंक्शन है.
ओके, तो एक मतलब वहाँ पे हमें एक फंक्शन लिखना है और एक ऑब्जेक्ट देना.
करेक्ट, एक फंक्शन और एक ऑब्जेक्ट. और ये फंक्शन ऐसे लिखना है. सो ये लेट्स थिंक अबाउट इट दिस वे. ओके, whenever we click dispatch, okay, whenever we dispatch some action, क्या होगा, ये स्टेट रिड्यूसर फंक्शन कॉल हो जाएगा खुद ब खुद. हम मैन्युअली तो नहीं कॉल कर रहे हैं उसको, राइट?
sorry.
उसको अंदर मिलेंगे दो आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, एक उसका
Return.
इनपुट स्टेट और दूसरा उसमें
Action.
एक्शन, हम लोग ने जो डिस्पैच किया वो वाला एक्शन उसको मिल जाएगा। ओके, फिर उसके हिसाब से वो कोई नया स्टेट रिटर्न करेगा। ओके, इट विल रिटर्न वॉट एवर अपडेटेड स्टेट एंड वो स्टेट यहां पे अपडेट हो जाएगा। सो इमेजिन जैसे हम सेट स्टेट करते हैं, राइट? व्हेन वी यूज सेट स्टेट और what happens, the state gets updated. This is very similar, but we are just calling dispatch instead of set state. And अगर हमें state के साथ भी कुछ करना है, all of it can happen inside here. We don't need to pass the state as an argument. That argument automatically वो ले लेता है। अभी भी थोड़ा अनक्लियर है?
मतलब अब समझ तो आ गया, but the syntax थोड़ा
हाँ, syntax is a little bit, I understand, and I think a little of it will come with practice. So when you do the assignment this time, you'll kind of get a hands-on. Okay, exactly क्या हो रहा है? Let's go ahead, ठीक है? And again we'll come back to this point. क्योंकि yes, I understand this is a confusing syntax. And say क्यों कर रहे हैं हम ये सब? I get it. One second, I'll just get my chart. Okay. So right now we have toggled the show completed और हमें state में दिखा रहा है, लेकिन हमारा UI update नहीं हो पा रहा. There's the reason for that. ठीक है? Now when we do this, okay, state is it's an object, right? So is it passed by reference or passed by value? Passed by reference. When we do state.showCompleted equal to not of state.showCompleted, are we changing the reference? No. When we return the state, React will receive the same reference. है ना? Old same वाला. So again, it will think that अच्छा कुछ change नहीं हुआ है, right? So we need to make sure that we always return a new reference by spreading it. Okay. Now if we check, this works. And the standard way of doing this is we spread the old state. ठीक है? फिर show completed change करना है ना? So show completed not of state dot show completed. And right. Okay. This is the first action that we have. Great. Next, we'll set the loading one, right? So again, we'll do the same thing. Right now, I'll just take this use state out. इसके बदले डालूंगा ये main state dot loading और ये set loading function को मैं नीचे डिफाइन कर देता हूँ, const set loading equal to now suppose मुझे चाहिए कि set loading में हम कहीं से भी कुछ भी पास कर सके, ट्रू भी पास कर सकते हैं, फॉल्स भी पास कर सकते हैं, जो हमें चाहिए वैसे हम कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? उस केस में so first is we will have to use dispatch to make this happen. Dispatch, and then we have type. तो टाइप में एक नया टाइप डिफाइन करना पड़ेगा. Set loading. Okay. इसमें हम करेंगे क्या? Inside set loading. Again, we want to remember that we want to change the loading value to whatever boolean the user, I mean the we pass inside dispatch में जो हम pass करेंगे, that value we want to set into state. How will we do that? Just look at this and try to get an answer.
जो लोडिंग का है,
Yeah, first we spread it, then loading.
जो भी भेजेंगे,
हाँ, where will we get that? Correct. We'll get it in action. Now there are two things. One is action.type, which is already set loading, so that cannot be it, right? The other key we have given allowed is action.payload. ठीक है? तो इससे now you should also get an idea of what we should write here. So type will be actions.set loading. And now what else do we need to pass?
Payload.
Correct. Whatever, true or false, whatever. You know? So let's right now just pass it as true. Okay. So we just go here and we'll see it happened. Basically, you're loading true here. We can, you know, we have not yet accepted this from the function. You know, so now if someone calls this set loading function with some boolean, we can actually pass it that boolean instead. है ना? तो अभी नीचे जाके हम देखेंगे set loading कहाँ पे हुआ है. हाँ, यहाँ पे, right? It's set to false. So previously it was getting set to false, but here we were dispatching an action with payload true constant था. इसके लिए वो कभी change ही नहीं हुआ. Now let's refresh. Loading दिखता है, एकदम briefly दिख रहा है, but yeah, we get it. ठीक है? So this is all that. Let's just do this time out. एक सेकंड के लिए तो दिखे. Let's refresh. Loading and to-do list. Great. So this one you all did by yourselves. Fantastic. Now to-dos. This is going to be more complicated. Okay. So to-dos ke saath, what actions do we have? Let's see what all operations we have. We can add a to-do and we can mark a to-do as completed. We can search the to-dos, but should that affect the state? No. Last time only we saw that, right? We can sort the to-dos. That also, it does not need to affect the state. It can be used as a use memo. So we won't be using these. But yes, add to-do and mark completed. So let's define those actions. So first, add to-do. Now, when I add a to-do, let's look at right now अभी क्या होता है add to-do में. ठीक है, we set the to-dos to whatever they are currently. उसमें फिर ID आ जाता है to-dos.length +1. Title आता है which we are passing as a string, which the user passes as a string, and completed by default is false. Okay. So then tell me out here what will be right. Return. Correct. Spread the state. To-dos. Very good. Very right. Yeah. But so to-dos mein first again we will spread the to-dos. Okay. Let's actually try it without it. State.todos right now like this only, and we need to add one element to it, है ना? So new object, उसका ID क्या रहेगा? Correct. State.todos.length +1. Fantastic. उसका title. Now title comes from user, है ना? So where will we get it?
payload.
inside the payload, action dot payload. And lastly, we have completed, which will be false by default. Lovely, man. Good job. Great. Now, so instead of, okay, so this is one thing. Okay. And let's do the second one, mark to do completed.
Payload में हम object भी देख सकते हैं या फिर मतलब
Yes, you can send anything inside the payload. Good question. Case actions dot mark to do complete. ठीक है. In this case, what will we need to do? कोई एक to do होगा, which I need to mark as completed.
Return.
Okay. Return.
वो to-do का ID लगेगा.
Correct. So let's do this here.
Condition.
ID will be equal to what?
Payload से या
Payload से आना पड़ेगा. Payload dot ID. Perfect. और दूसरा क्या होगा कि whether it is actually अगर previously completed है तो incomplete हो जाएगा और incomplete है तो completed हो जाएगा. So then that we don't need, है ना? Correct. क्योंकि opposite ही करना पड़ेगा. तो ठीक है. We just need actually the ID. So we can just take it as payload. हाँ, Gaurav, you were saying something?
हाँ, वही.
हाँ, okay. Now, so either return, abhi, what else will I need to do?
useReducer.id, the state.useReducer.id equal ID. Then
Huh. So we have to find that element inside to do's where the ID is equal, and then we need to change it. Update. Right? Now, how do we do that? Correct. Perfect. We can map over the to do's. Right. So where should I write all this? You have to guide me through this. Gauravi, can you actually help on this one? Sally already did the last one.
Yes. So we can write here only 31 number line.
Okay. What will I write?
State dot to do's dot map.
State dot to do's dot map.
And then in that map we have to get the to do's.
Yeah.
And then we have to pass the condition for the like that constant ID equal to to do's dot ID.
Yeah.
And then we have to return statement here.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then we have to add that state to do's in that return statement.
No. In this return
Object में.
No, but then here did we change the completed value of this? We'll have to change it, na?
हाँ. तो वो रिटर्न स्टेटमेंट में भी डाल सकते हैं जैसे फर्स्ट कंप्लीट में डाला है, फर्स्ट रिटर्न में डाला है, लाइन नंबर 18 के जैसे सेम.
हाँ, करेक्ट. तो मतलब यहाँ पे कुछ करना पड़ेगा क्या? 33
हाँ,
पे?
यहाँ पे ऑब्जेक्ट बना के एक ऑब्जेक्ट हम लोग रिटर्न कर सकते हैं स्टेट टू डू का, और सेकेंड आर्गुमेंट में हम लोग उसका जो कंप्लीटेड मार्क है वो मार्क कर सकते हैं.
Right. So we'll do to do, spread the to do's to do the old one, right? Correct. This is what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we have to mark that complete to do.
Not of to do dot
completed.
Cool. Now we return
Set to do's.
directly.
नहीं, ऑब्जेक्ट में.
ऑब्जेक्ट में state dot to do's ऐसे कर सकते हैं.
हाँ.
Are you sure? It's showing an error.
To-dos.
The to-dos रिटर्न करेंगे हाथ से.
हाँ. Okay. So to-dos में क्या?
to-dos. हाँ. to-dos colon वो
हाँ.
के अंदर
To-dos colon
ब्रैकेट लाइन नंबर 24 के जैसे सेम.
bracket to-dos. Okay. Spreading the to-dos. State dot to-dos.
state dot to-dos. हाँ.
Okay. ठीक है. Cool. And do we need to do anything else? Do we need to return anything else from state?
नहीं.
Do we अभी
पूरे to-do के लिए
okay, let's
हाँ.
let's run this. So right now we've got add to do and mark to do completed. So अभी क्या करेंगे? We'll say हाँ. So instead of here, we will just dispatch, instead of set to do's, we will dispatch an action.
dispatch
Type will be actions dot
action dot
completed.
to-dos completed.
Payload will be the ID.
and payload में ID.
Perfect. And this we will turn off. Add to do में again we will just dispatch type actions dot
add to-dos.
and payload में this title string. Perfect. What happened? Okay, it's just expected 0 arguments, but what one? Why, buddy? Huh? Why is this error happening? और वो भी suddenly आ रहा है. Yeah, I think this is like a mistake. Let's just go for it. You know, close करेंगे, and we need to replace our to-do state. You know, set to-dos. Set to-dos अभी भी कहीं use हो रहा है क्या? Oh, we also need to set the to-dos. वो एक case बाकी रह गया. Let's just write that very quickly. So जब पहली first time when we get the to-dos from API, we just need to pick them up and set them, right? So that case should be very simple. Gauravi, can you take that?
Yes. Action dot set to-dos का case.
Yeah. फिर इसमें क्या रहेगा?
इसमें हम लोग use effect लिख सकते हैं क्या, मतलब जो हमें API कॉल करना है उसका?
नहीं. So whatever, see, the API call will happen in use effect. Okay. We are only talking about this set to do's function. We will only replace this line. ये line को हम replace कर देंगे with a dispatch call.
Okay.
So ये जो भी response आ रहा है, right? Whatever response,
तो यहाँ पे
we will pass it to this
discuss का
dispatch function, and it should get set in the reducer. So how will we do that? ठीक है, I'll
वहां से हम लोग को पेलोड में पास करना पड़ेगा वो जो रिस्पॉन्स
Absolutely
आएगा
right.
वो,
absolutely
एंड
right.
देन वो वहाँ पे ऊपर एक टू डू के इसमें ऐड करना पड़ेगा.
Correct. So let's say dispatch may, as you rightly said, the payload will be there, right? And the second one is type,
Type
which will be actions dot
action dot
set.
set.
Okay. So this one is perfect. Okay. Now how will we handle it out here? Let's ये दो cases को ignore करो अभी के लिए. Just look at this and use this as a reference.
यहाँ से हम लोग को एक रिटर्न स्टेटमेंट लिखना पड़ेगा. रिटर्न स्टेट.
Yeah. What do I do now?
यहाँ पे एक समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, यहाँ पे स्टेट टू डूज आएंगे या सिर्फ से स्टेट आएगा, मतलब टी डॉट के बाद.
No problem. Perfect. Thank you. So now remember, जो भी हम यहाँ से return करेंगे ना, that will get set to the entire component state. Okay. So component state is what? It has to do's also, it has show completed also, it has loading also. Right? So if we just return to do's, it will not work. We need to return the rest of things, and rest of things have to be untouched. हमको उसको वापस कुछ replicate करना ही नहीं है. So that's why what we do is we'll spread it first. पहले state को spread कर देंगे कि जो state वैसे का वैसा पहले डाल दो. Second thing what we'll do is we'll pass the to-dos. In this case, what will be the updated to-dos?
Action dot payload.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. And so now I will just get rid of this, and to-do is equal to state dot to-dos. And this should be interesting. Okay, so set to हो गए, है ना? Right. They're actually, after that 1 second, it's getting set. Now let's mark something completed. Okay, so right now it's not getting marked completed. Let's add a to-do. Test, add to-do. Yep, it got added. So add to-do is working fine. We need to rework on mark to-do completed. Okay. Let's look at what is happening after we do markup. So let's actually do this. Now I'll create show to-dos. Okay. And let me toggle this mark. You see the show completed also getting reverted. ये क्यों हो रहा है? Let's come to the code. Now we'll only focus on this block. Yeah. So what are let's look at just the return statement, right? We're returning only to-dos from here, right? But that means our show completed and loading state will be lost. So how can we prevent this, Gauravi?
First, तो spread operator से state भी हमें वहाँ पे return करना पड़ेगा.
Perfect. Perfect. We'll return the state first using the spread operator. So show completed. Now my mark is not getting marked, but the rest is working fine. It's not resetting everything else. That's cool. Okay. Second thing is ये state dot to do's. Let's check console log करके check करते हैं कि वो update हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है. Let's see console log and to do's. And can I remove these other console? Okay. So now we have these 10. अभी इसमें से ये et poro मैंने किया. I am expecting it to become false. ये वाला था, right? But it's remaining true. Let's take the first one also. First one is this, like this or whatever, right? Starting from D, I mark it completed. Right now it's false. Should get marked as true, but it's not happening. Every time I click, it's coming false only. So matlab, what I am, okay, so how can we debug this further? Let's go into that. How will we debug this more? Now we know that the to-dos are not getting updated. This is clear to us. Okay. So where else should we check?
useReducer के वो action के अंदर.
Correct. Yeah, action के अंदर. What do we need to check here now?
यहाँ पे पहले वो चेक करना पड़ेगा कि आईडीज मैच हो रहे कि नहीं हो रहे. पेलोड से जो आईडी आ रहा है वो.
Good idea. Good point. Okay. So console.log matched, and we'll print out the to-do also. You know, just to confirm. Let's clear this. Print it. Yep, we got a match. It was false and it should have become true. So far so good. So this is getting triggered correctly. Correct. Was set new. Let's do one thing now. Okay. Whatever we are returning, let's print that. No. Okay. So this is exactly what we are going to be returning from here. And let's print console log before returning. And we'll print out this part. Now, this should give a clear idea of what is happening. So let's say I do this matched, completed true. It's false right now. And when I, so it is actually returning completed true also. Yahan pe. Now, before returning, if we check, this completed is false.
वो अपडेट नहीं हो रहा.
Correct. So update क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? I'll just go over this. todos.map, the map function is returns a new array. Right? वो existing array को update नहीं करता. It will return a new array. So we need to store that array somewhere. And that's why here we are getting an error. It expects a value to be returned at the end of arrow function. Okay, that is a different thing. So this has to be returned to do. So if we find the correct to do, then we return the updated one. Otherwise, we just need to return the normal to do. Right. So that is one thing. And what we can do is we can say state.todos, or we can just create a new const updated to-dos equal to this entire thing. And now while returning, we just return the
updated to this.
Now let's try this. And it's okay. Fantastic. Right? Ah, correct. You're right. We don't need to spread the updated to-dos. Why? But
existing object हमने change ही कर दिया. मतलब जो चाहिए वही है उसमें.
Correct. मतलब updated to-dos, when we are mapping over it, it returns a completely new array in a new address only. तो फिर हमको उसको स्प्रेड करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती. वेरी अलर्ट. गुड जॉब. गुड पॉइंट टू मेक. एंड नाउ अभी इसमें क्या प्रॉब्लम है? Parameter to do implicitly has any type. That have any. 92. Right? Why is it showing to do's as any? State dot to do's. To do's as any or what?
तो पेलोड इन किया था.
इसकी वजह से है. गुड पॉइंट. अगर ऐसा होगा तो यहाँ पे तो है. So let's set this to do item array. नहीं, अभी भी नहीं हो रहा है. Okay, maybe it just doesn't realize. So we'll help it. To do item. Simple. Conscious. Yep, this works. So now we can add a to do. And we can mark them as completed. And we can have show completed. Right? So every functionality that we had is now recreated only using this dispatch function. Right? Sab jagah pe ab dispatch hai. Now let's say right now, see what we are doing is we're wrapping this inside a callback. Hai na? But now what if I export this actions and in add to do form now, I just pass this dispatch function. And even in mark to do completed, I just pass dispatch. Okay. And wherever, abhi yahan pe to do list hai, I'll go inside and wherever I'm doing this, mark it as completed, right? So it's going to do list item. ठीक है. हाँ. So I'll say dispatch. Oh. So mark to do completed is only dispatch. Okay, this is confusing. Okay, basically we can pass this dispatch down, है ना? Directly हम dispatch भेज सकते हैं और वहां से we can pass the action that we want to update. Right? Yeah, we can call it with whatever type we want, whatever payload we want. तो ये जो main body में हमारे ये जो functions है, add to do, mark to do completed, toggle show completed, all these I can replace with dispatch. I can just say I'll pass dispatch to all of you. You guys from the reducer and the actions, we know what we are going to how we are going to update the state. So then from wherever we need, we will dispatch the correct action and it will all get updated. So you don't have to use any more use callback. You don't have to define this entire function only. Just directly pass dispatch and it works. So that is one of the benefits. The major benefit of reducer is in testing. Okay? When we write test cases for certain components, which we haven't written so far. So again, it will not be a very strong point for you all right now. But when we test some component, है ना, उसका तो first तो उसका fetch होगा, तो उसको mock करना पड़ेगा, and then the state will get updated. Then we will have to check the UI. So all this becomes very, very complicated. Then there is an is loading state. So when it is fetching, it should be loading, things like that. So when we write test cases for reducer, it becomes very simple. Okay? I won't explain why it becomes very easy, but it becomes much easier. So in those cases, reducer helps. Okay. right now you will have to take my word. You will just have to believe me कि हाँ reducer अच्छा है थोड़ा बहुत, इतना अच्छा नहीं है but just a little bit. Okay, but I think you all are now have understood how this reducer is working at least. वो clear है Gauravi? You're also clear on that, right? Gauravi?
Yes, yes.
Cool. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we'll go to the next part. It is not yet. Okay. Now, some guidelines. Keep the actions and constants, use a switch case, and we have to have a default case where we return the state as it is. And ensure that you return a copy of the state and you do not mutate the state. Mutate means changing the contents inside it without changing the address. We should not do that. Okay. That's pretty much it. So these are the guidelines for reducers. Now we'll look at another interesting problem in React, which is the problem of global state. Let's take an example. Suppose I have some parent and this is a component A. Okay. This component A has, let's say the user profile. This is the user profile node. Okay, the blue mark, one marked in blue. It is the user profile. Isme, the user's name, the user's image, all of that is there. And the same data we are showing here. Maybe it is some, maybe it is some comment where this current user has commented something, and we want to use the same data here also. If the user updates from here, it should get updated here. And if the user updates from here, which he can't, he can. But yeah, either ways, it should work vice versa. So ये कैसे कर सकते हैं हम? So let's imagine that our user object is a normal state variable. How can we do this? Can we pass it to this directly? No. Correct. We will have to keep it at the parent. Now, what is the problem? One is when I keep it at the parent, so I have to again pass it down manually here. Then I have to pass it down manually here. And I have to pass it down manually here also. And in fact, now imagine if this is a very small tree. Component trees become very, very large, very quickly in React. Okay? So imagine now if I have some 10 nodes out here and I have 7 nodes out here, I will sit and pass across each node. That will become very, very inconvenient, right? So this is the conventional solution, exactly what you mentioned. Okay, we take that state into a common parent and then we pass the state via props all the way down. This is called prop drilling. ठीक है, उसको drill करते रहना पड़ता है जब तक वो सही जगह पे पहुंचता नहीं. This is a very inconvenient way of doing it. That's why React introduced something called context. Okay. So let's just go over this. We'll create a dummy context. Okay. We'll create a count variable only, which will be used in 2 parts of our app. One, it will be used in maybe this this filters. This filter section, this show completed section, and one it will be used somewhere at the bottom of the list. Okay. And when we update anyone, the other should also get updated. Okay. So let's look at context. Okay. Good. First thing we have to do, we have this theme context. So we will name it something differently. We will call counter context. Okay, and we have this function create context, which is exported by React. So पहले ये कर लेते हैं. const counter context equal to create context. Okay, and inside we want to store what? We just want to store a count variable, maybe 0. No. So this is, so context lets us pass a value with light as the default. So this is like initial value. Okay, 0 will be the default value if nothing is passed to it. Okay, this is counter context. Next, what are you doing? Use a provider to pass the current context to the tree below it. Meaning, any component we pass, we wrap with this context.provider, which is the same name, the same variable. Uska ek by default dot provider component hota hai, right? And if we have this, that will get passed to the entire component tree. So let's do it. Let's wrap. Actually, let's do this inside index. ठीक है, so क्या लिखा था? काउंटर कॉन्टेक्स्ट का प्रोवाइडर होगा, काउंटर कॉन्टेक्स्ट डॉट प्रोवाइडर, and it could also close counter context dot done. This can be removed. Now let's see, value, we can pass some value to it. Okay, so value equal to say 10. Now scroll down. So this is the part of creating the context. We create a context and we create a context dot provider, right? And we wrap whichever part we want to access this particular context, we wrap it with the provider. Now listening to the context, right? So wherever we want to access this context, we need to do something. Context of provider, consumer. Okay, it's not here, but there's a use context hook. So this is reducer. What does that mean? Okay. So we have to pass value equal to use context of my context. My context is wherever we have defined that context. So in our case, it is the counter context. So if we want to use it in other files, obviously we need to export it. Okay. Export this context. And now let's just test it out here. So we have not passed any props to this to-do app. It is only wrapped inside this context. Const count equal to use context of counter context. And let's console log this. From here, we get the count as 10. Fantastic. So whatever data we have out there, we are able to pass it down to this to-do app. Now let's take the deepest part, right? Concept to-do list item. Now we do const count equal to value. Use context of counter context, and we'll just after each title, we'll just print it out. Great. So we're getting that value even at the deepest level. We did not have to pass it down anywhere. All we needed to do was wrap our app inside that context provider. Now, what if we want to update this also? So we will actually need to create new. ठीक है. Okay. So Abhi, now let's imagine I keep a state variable here. Const count, comma, set count equal to useState of 10. And here, now instead of passing just one single variable, I pass count also and set count also. And this create context. Do we import useState? No. Okay. So create context is giving us an error. By default, we want count 0. Set count can be just function. अरे यार. Okay, I won't go into this TypeScript error right now. Okay. Now let's just look at, so one thing that will happen is this one will break to-do list item because we're printing it right now. So let's just console log. So you see, now we are, instead of that just 10, we're getting both count and set count. So now I can, let's say I just want to, on change, I also want to increment the count. So I'll just do, first I'll destructure these, set count, and I'll add set count to count plus 1. Let's do that. And every time I mark completed, we're seeing 11, 12. It is changing correctly. No. So it's updating from here, and we should be able to see it in our to-do app also. So we have 10. So now I'm updating it from here, but here also it's getting updated. Very simple. Yeah. So that's all about context. Okay. We've covered these two things today. Do you think we should stop here? Time is 6:30. Don't worry about the time. Think about the content. If it is too much to process, then let's not go ahead.
I think so. This is done for today.
Yeah, for today it's fine, right? Okay, cool. We'll stop here. You all have any questions about, pending questions about context? Any questions about the context? Or was it pretty simple? हाँ, यूज समझ में आ गया और कैसे भी यूज करना है वो भी समझ आ गया. कोई सिंटैक्स में कोई डिफिकल्टी?
नहीं, सिंटैक्स में नहीं.
याद नहीं रखने का. This even I won't remember the syntax 100% right now, right? So you can always look it up. Okay, you can always check the documentation and just check ये कैसे use करना है. There will be 10 YouTube videos you will get. All you should understand. So the goal of training is just to introduce you to this concept. So when you come across it, you should be like, हाँ अरे पता है, इतना complex नहीं है कुछ, right? Except for reducer complex. Okay, so any questions about reducers? Do you all have any questions about reducers still?
जो फंक्शन है उसको डिस्पैच ही हमेशा मान लेंगे.
Dispatch उसका standard name है. Yes. So dispatch means कोई action उसको भेज रहा है, like that. Just call it dispatch. If you have multiple reducers in the same component, you can alias it. You can call it anything else you want. Then you can say dispatch state action, whatever. any doubts?
एक्चुअली मुझे ये पूछ,
Hmm.
हम लोग सारा कोड रिड्यूसर का कंपोनेंट का एक ही फाइल में लिखते हैं क्या हमेशा?
No, correct. You are right. So this entire reducer code, okay, even the actions would go into its own file. ठीक है? So actions का एक separate file रहेगा, reducer का भी उसका खुद का separate file रहेगा. This will not be inside the same one. So right now, so if I want, I can create a new file, call it reducers. Oh, sorry, new folder. I can call it reducers. And inside that, I can add a new file to do app reducer.ps. And any reducer file, it will generally not be capital case. Okay, it will start with small case. And मैं वहां से ये export कर देता हूं. हर बार कमांड V के बदले में C हो जाता है. Cool. And these actions also, we would have it in its own folder. Actions. अब ये है ना, structure इतना fixed नहीं है. Okay.
Okay.
So let's see. Yeah, I would name it to do app.actions.ts and to do app.user. And let's put this. The other actions import करने पड़ेंगे. That. तो हाँ, मतलब ये सब कुछ है वैसे काफी tedious in that case. But yeah, this is how you would probably write the reducer. And then we would import the state reducer here. And we import the actions here. और ये, this is done.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So actions would be its separate file. Reducer would be its separate file. So finally, to do app में, and that is actually what we were talking about in the beginning, right? कि तुम्हारा पूरा state का logic वो यहाँ पे होता ही नहीं है फिर. Then you don't have to worry about it. All you have to say is dispatch. Which action do I want to dispatch right now? Okay, I'm getting the to-dos and I need to set them. Okay, actions set to-dos. And what do I need to send? Okay, I need to send the response. Done. Here I need to add a to-do. Okay, I'll just send this which action I need to do. And what do I need to send? So add to do, and I'll just send the title. And I am sure that the reducer, मतलब I've written the reducer in such a way, it will take care of everything else for me. तो इसमें to do's को pass नहीं करना, तो अभी ये देखो इसका dependency आ रही है 0 हो गया. No. Even this will never get recomputed. वो एक बार declare किया, वो वैसे का वैसा ही रहेगा. Yeah.
अगर हेलो
Yeah. बोलो.
अगर suppose हमारे कोई एक्शन पे हमें एपीआई कॉल करना है, हम लोग वो रिड्यूसर में डाल सकते हैं क्या एपीआई कॉल?
हाँ, okay. So if you want to put API calls inside the reducer, it's not possible. मतलब in the normal useReducer. Okay. Even in Redux, it is not possible. In Redux, you have something called, मतलब there are some middlewares. Okay. There is a Redux Thunk and there is Redux Saga. So these things generally take care of it for you. But no, you cannot call API. So APIs, you have to call it separately. And then whatever action you need to dispatch, you can dispatch it after you have received it, the response.
Okay.
Anything else?
नहीं, फिलहाल तो नहीं, जब यूज करेंगे.
Right. So in that case, so yeah, that's the assignment, right? Will be for you to use reducer. Okay? Use a reducer to maintain the state in the app that you created in the last assignment. Okay? So wherever you have used state, and this is just this is not a recommendation. I'm not recommending that everywhere you use useReducer. Okay? But this will just help you get the practice of writing reducers. So you might have 5 or 6 state variables, whatever, you want to filter, you want to search, whatever you want to do. For all of those, you write wherever you are using useState, instead of that, use reducer. Okay? So this आपका kind of हाथ बैठ जाएगा and you will understand, ठीक है, ऐसे काम कर रहा है ये चीज. Okay?
Okay, ठीक है.
All right.
हाँ, आप कोड पुश कर दो.
I'll push this code immediately. Yes. This code is in session 4 branch.
Okay, ठीक है.
All right. Cool. Thanks, guys.